Good morning, Hollowed Haven family. This is After Dawn, the show where we sit down and have a cup of coffee with the cast, crew, and creators behind the Hollowed Haven Studios productions. I'm Vironz. Uh, I typically would have a co-host today, but Solomon is off doing things, and we can all appreciate that. We're going to be talking about Hunter Wayfarer Season 2, Episode 4. We got to see the first steps into getting to know each other's past, the group's past with each other. We got to see that. We got to see them get a new RV for the group. That was very fancy. And we met a mage. And we also ended in a vision seeing Rosanna's sister with the Fae. Personally, it was good to see mages being brought into the fold for this episode. And with like the final vision, I was very surprised to see that Rosanna saw her sister holding the chains, like meaning that she actually knows where about the Fae lineage and actually where it is. So Clara, with you being here today, and with you being where you were in a couple episodes ago, what went through your head when you were asked to come on as such a key SBC in Arthur's backstory?
Panic. It's hard coming in it's hard coming into a story and being someone who is such a hinge part of a story. I probably just wrecked BP with really, really nuanced questions that did not matter. I'm a consummate over preparer, and then none of it matters. So, and then I'm like, I'll throw it all out and do, and just I guess improv it. But the main thing was I truly was just I don't want to fuck this up. Oh, can I swear?
Yes.
Yes. It didn't come up the whole time we were talking.
We can swear. We avoid certain words, even if they are typically used by your community. We do try to avoid using them because not everybody wants
no
to hear
intention
it.
Of that.
Good.
But no, yeah, I just it didn't occur. It didn't come up the entire time we were chatting earlier.
No, I don't think we even swore during the time we were chatting earlier. I might have, but that's because I work as a cook, and that's second nature to me.
Yeah, no.
So you didn't really want to fuck that story up.
No, and it's now Scott has given me access to Arthur's journals now, so I can see the process that his character has been going through. But before that, I was just I know as much as Katy Lynn does now.
I was wanting to ask because we had Alarag on last week, and he's been with us as an SBC in other shows before, so he was able to actually be a part of these letters that Rosanna was writing to Peter, and so he actually had a lot more of a hand in that character. Where you were, you joined us a little bit before you joined, before you were an SBC. You joined us before you joined. No, before you were an SBC on the actual show. So I don't think you had, in my eyes, I don't know if you had much of a hand or much of an idea.
I had the prep of asking about what was available and listening to BP's portrayal of the character. Truly, I GM games, so part of me is oh, cool. So I'm here to emotionally devastate this character. I can do that. And so after we hung up and all of the things, I mentioned it to a friend, and they were the video that they watch in movies that the husband watches in the movie after the wife has gone missing.
Mm-hmm.
They're yeah, you get it's that kind of performance, real dead wife realness.
Scott, how did it feel to actually have that call and interact with that part of Arthur's backstory personally now?
Okay, so I set myself up for that because I was it's been a while. He should probably call someone. And so I was expecting it to be fairly devastating because I know how BP has been portraying Katy Lynn. What I was not expecting was for someone else to bring a whole new level of energy to that. And yeah, no, it was rough. It was really rough. I was like, I don't even know how to react to the fact that there's now an entirely different person who is focused entirely on ruining my life.
You're welcome.
Fun times.
So yeah, now you
Yeah.
just have like two people ruining that one character's life, but they are
Yeah.
technically the same person.
Yeah.
Yes.
It's the bond of all like game runners to be like, I gotta get a little sadistic here.
Absolutely. And it was expertly done, especially considering that Katy Lynn is like started as a touchstone with a brief background, and then BP gave her more personality when I actually interacted with that touchstone. And then
sorry to interrupt.
Oh, sorry, go ahead. No.
Like we could see like that devastation that BP brings to to Rosanna a lot. We see it a lot with Rosanna right now.
Lots with Rosanna, yeah, for sure. But then so she did that, and then she came and was just like, I was like, okay, so I have this desire to like contact Katy Lynn, and then all of a sudden it's like, oh, I'm gonna step it up, and I'm gonna ruin you a different way. Thanks, BP.
It wasn't not what the message asked when I was asked to play her. I'm gonna ruin someone's life.
Scott, I'm gonna give you a chance. You want to say Legacy's usual line?
I don't know.
What the fuck,
yeah. That is her usual line. Yeah.
Every time we've had her on, and we ask her, "What question do you want to ask VP or other people?" It's all.
No.
I had to specify last time, and it can't be "What the fuck, VP."
Yeah, well, because all right. So here's the thing. As a game master who focuses primarily on horror-oriented games, because I run a lot of those. I absolutely understand what BP is doing, so I don't have the question of what the fuck. I'm just like, yeah, good job, thumbs up, applause. You're doing it perfectly. Continue to ruin people's lives.
Performance is 10 out of 10.
Game recognizes game.
Yeah, I don't even have to ask. I know what you're doing. Thumbs up.
So, with the last episode and the previous one, and I guess with the other seasons too, like what has been the hardest thing for Arthur to deal with so far in Wayfarer?
Well, so Arthur, I think I discussed this the last time I was on talking about Arthur. Arthur's like whole thing is that he doesn't really know what he should be doing. And so this whole thing has been like anytime anyone is like dying or threatened, he has no freaking clue what to do, because he in this episode, we had this interaction with Gunshop, and there was a moment that will kind of come out when people get to see the behind the scenes and stuff. But like I know that Arthur in his mind was thinking, oh, I can take this guy, but I knew as a player that he absolutely could not. But then Arthur has to deal with this thing where he realizes that he's fragile and mortal, especially when you see a partner dead, like with Victoria or with other people that he finds. So the hardest things that he's actually been having to deal with the whole time from season 1 until now is the fact that Katy Lynn is still in the cult where she could die and he can't help her. That weak helplessness bothers him. And when in like the previous season, and even now, when Rosanna's in this weird state of being like dangerously on the edge of either becoming something he has to kill or is connected to something that he can't kill, it really bothers him, that weakness that he has, which stems back to actually his flaw that he has, which is this PTSD he has from Jillian's death, where he was actually supposed to be the one that sacrificed himself to save everybody, and instead Jillian got in his way and died instead. And so this whole thing for him is just that the hardest parts that he has to deal with is whenever he's weak and thinks that he's weak. But when he doesn't think that he's weak, then he's just a complete asshole. But
I mean, we definitely saw that in the last episode, because we saw him right in Gunshop.
Yeah.
He was so aggressive with Gunshop. I'm just thinking in my head, as someone who is a player, but most of the time, but am about to be running a show very soon, and with vampires, I'm just going like, why are you messing with a mage? They will just straight up wreck you.
But yeah, and they will, and I know that as a player. But see, Arthur thinks that he's the righteous hand of God now, and he is unsure as to whether or not he can save Katy Lynn, but he really thinks that he has the power to do so.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Now, Clara, I'm gonna shift gears a little bit. As we're as we're talking about like other systems. But what is your preference in RPGs when you play? Is like, do you prefer story? Do you prefer the combat, or do you prefer puzzles?
Do I like my peanut butter crunchy or smooth?
Or do you like it too?
I'm a little bit of both. It kind of depends on what I'm looking for. Uh, I as a GM am fully and as a GM and also as a player, I'm playing RPGs to come up with creative solutions, or else I'd play a board game or a video game where the options for your solutions are programmed in. Like I like story. My controversial take is it is often very hard to collaboratively tell a story without really kind of above the table agreeing on a lot beforehand, and you find that, and it's not impossible to find, but like players are going to do what players are going to do, and we get to do what we do about it. And so I don't know, I like a balance of both. There's also like just a really nice, it's like, I don't know, I feel like I'm talking about food, I don't know. There's just some days where I'm in the mood to stare at a battle mat for 4 hours as I roll dice and look at my the move sheet, and I'm like, well, what can I do with what I've got? And then there are some days where I want to play Fiasco and just like hand someone a die and be like, this is gonna go bad for you, figure it out.
Kind of, as I'm going to use a metaphor I'm stealing from one of my favorite interviews I've ever listened to, is kind of when you're making a soup and you put all your favorite things in it and you're trying to figure out if it's going to go bad or not.
Yeah. it's hard because like, oh, sorry.
I was just saying that's how you design a game. But anyway, go ahead.
Well, no, I mean, it's hard because like you want, there are just some days you're not in the mood for soup or whatever. It's the like, but I mean, it's what I like about games is there are so many ways that you can do it. But at the end of the day, I think it's the RPGs are about creativity first. So I guess like anything that allows you to be creative rather than just I have this in front of me and I do this with it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I mean, sorry to just respond to that. I've been doing this for a very long time, but it wasn't until a few years ago that I heard a statement that changed the perspective I had on this stuff, which was what made game design a different animal for me that I enjoy. But like, this story of RPGs shouldn't be the story is actually what the players do, and the GM's whole job is to just create plot points and challenges. That's their job, and then the players make the story. That's basically what I heard, and I was like, oh man, I've been good about this all wrong. But so when there are games that are like, oh, it's a narrative game with very little kind of crunch to it, I go, well, okay, but then like how are we handling this whole idea that it's narrative? Because I've seen some games that are designed to basically tell a story, and while they might be a little fun, there's a specific story that's going to happen every time you play it. Like Don't Walk in Winterwood. Every time you play that game, everyone is eventually going to die in a way that's really bad, and the game gets progressively worse, but it tells the same kind of story. You go out, you're doing a thing, something weird happens, you get to a point where you have to make a decision, and then everybody dies. That's the game every single time you play it. I'm like, okay, well, that doesn't help with that creative solution thing you're talking about, which is the whole point of RPGs.
Yeah.
Well, and it's like, it's that like the story I hear of people triumphing with like D&D, the example of DTRPGs. People don't tell you the cool story about when they executed the game perfectly. They tell you about the cool story where they used fill with water on someone's lungs. Like,
correct.
The excitement is never about I played the game perfectly. The excitement is like I looked at the tools I got and then I got to do something crazy with them.
Yeah, I thought outside the box and something fun happened.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, Clara, we actually have this ritual of asking everyone new on the show about their favorite World of Darkness product. What would you say is your favorite thing to come from the World of Darkness?
I think I'm legally obligated to say Vampire the Masquerade, but
Ooh.
If you
I'm
are,
just kidding.
if we're removing the legal obligation,
I'm looking for like snipers. No, I love Changeling. I love. I'm a fairy kid. I was at a fairy thing yesterday. I like all that shit. It was my first World of Darkness game. I really want to play the new Changeling the Lost, and have been low key planning on it. But yeah, I will say I do like Vampire. No legal obligation necessary. I do like it.
just
But
not your absolute favorite.
I don't know how much time you got. Like,
Unfortunately, yeah, we do have a time restriction.
the elevator
Um,
pitch for that, for my dislike, not dislike, but for my big sigh with Vampire is gonna be that I don't know that I have seen people play Vampire in a way that I'm like, yeah, like you've got it, you figured out the game.
Yeah.
Like if I may be gross and plug my own thing, I do feel like Queen's Court has the All Night Society. We have a decent handle on how, we all agree how one should play Vampire. But yeah, that's all.
No,
Well, I mean-
honestly, I think you hit it on the mark. I've played a lot of Vampire, and actually, my introduction to World of Darkness was a Vampire LARP, and
Oh no.
yeah, no, it was. And the funny story about that is I walked in, like I had, gaming background. I'd been playing Shadowrun for a little while. I've been playing some D&D and some other games. But I walked in and I was like, okay, I'm going to play this LARP. And I was like, okay, these are the rules. I'm like, cool, I'm going to do this. And it turned out I was the only one that was actually like really playing the game. Everyone else was just kind of there to cosplay and stand around and talk to each other. And so I ended up becoming Prince in 6 months because I was the only one that was like developing my like background stuff. I was like growing my influence. I was like, this is how you play the game. And I went from being a low son of a person to suddenly being Prince of the area. And I'm like, this is weird.
yeah.
This is really weird.
I find a lot of people play World of Darkness like a power fantasy, and I'm like, World of Darkness explicitly doesn't want you to be in power. Like,
right.
Yeah. Well, and actually, that's sort of funny to say. My first exposure, because my family, my parents, they played World of Darkness when I was a kid with their group of friends, and they had the second edition werewolf books. And that was where my first exposure was, because we're like, oh, hey, what's this? What's this Macaulay thing? And then we're like, oh, it's a supplement. Where's the actual book? And I just find the second edition book and I start reading through it. And werewolves have this feeling of being this powerhouse, but in a constant losing battle against the world. But yeah, I don't know. It's just something I really quite like werewolves. I'm cautiously excited about 5th edition. Cautiously excited.
Yeah, that's where I fall. I've actually never been a super fan of werewolf, but I am. After seeing the Hunter the Reckoning H5 stuff, I'm kind of going, okay, they might, and some of the things that they've released, I'm like, okay, cautiously hopeful is a good way to describe it.
And having played 20th and seen 2nd edition, I'm cautiously excited just because of I was overly excited beforehand, but now I'm cautiously excited because of the controversies and other things that have happened, and that's where I'm just going like,
how much time do you have?
Well, but I'm also going like, I'm looking at the history of like World of Darkness and White Wolf Publishing and everything that's happened. I'm just going like, this is just like, it's sort of on brand to have these issues, but not like, but with having had this time to prepare for it, and with the changes that you made, you didn't decide to like push production. Correct. You decided to keep it on track. I'm just going like, okay, this is going to be weird. We're going to have, having also seen the release of 6th edition for Shadowrun, I'm going like, you kept things on schedule, which I'm not overly excited about. You could have changed things. So I think we're going to have a somewhat well-designed book, and we're not going to have the issues that like Shadowrun 6th edition had, where it was like genuinely they had like typos misspellings.
God.
And there were
Mhm.
so many issues when that book first released.
As a person who got it at the Origins launch, because I knew it was being launched at the Origins and I happened to be there, I can absolutely agree with what you're saying.
So I was like, I'm looking at 5th edition, and we're having issues with the staff being changed and keeping things on track where it should have been. Where personally,
Mm-hmm.
not the opinions of our studio.
Mm-hmm.
So we are a part of the Dark Pack.
Woof.
Indeed.
I think things should have been delayed to have had that time to change and deal with. And we're also seeing that with the only thing that was pushed and is currently in development hell is Bloodlines 2.
With apologies for you who have to edit the sound of me sighing.
That's me. It's not going to be edited. It's going to be there.
It's going to be
there. There's things that I have personal beliefs and everything. It's okay.
Yeah.
But in the mechanics of things, because there are crunchy bits to vampire and werewolf and mage. Mage is crunch.
Yeah,
but in a different way.
Indeed.
What are some mechanics of like Hunter specifically that you would like to change, Scott? Because you are a game developer person.
Sure. Yeah. Okay. I wasn't sure if this was a question for her, but I guess it's a question for me, which makes sense. It absolutely makes sense. Yeah.
I am unfortunately. I've wanted to play it. I'm not familiar enough with Hunter to be like, yeah.
Well, so mechanically, there's not a tremendous amount of mechanical changes I would have made to Hunter. I think that they did a solid job of making it like with the desperation die pool being similar to the blood pool, but instead of it being like taking over your pool, it's like additional. So it allows you to, like, when things are real serious and you're facing off against a monster, you actually have additional dice that you can use to, do what you need to do to take them down as you are a hunter. So I actually think that the basic mechanics of the game, pretty solid. There's a few design things that I absolutely would have done a little differently, but my opinions are my opinions as a game designer versus the people who originally developed it. There's a few things about the way that characters develop that are a little weird, and some of the edges that you have. So the edges are a thing that I actually that's the part that actually sticks me quite a bit. There's some decent edges. There's a few that I find to be a little bit wonky in comparison to like the other edges, and like the fact that they made like library is this edge that a hunter can have, but that means that it can't be part of a safe house is a bit of a weird thing, because a hunter can have like a giant library that helps them find the monsters and stuff, but the safe house can't. So only the one player can really help the group, and so if you don't have a hunter with library, you don't have access to one, which is a bit strange. There's a few that like breaking down. I think the smart thing they did was breaking like True Faith into essentially 4 different like semi-magical abilities was actually a pretty smart choice. But the perks that go along with it, like I have, so as using Arthur as an example, Arthur has the artifact edge, and so he's got this ability to do these things that are slightly the same as, like, say, sensing the unknown, because like the bracers glow when he's in the presence of something supernatural. Sure, he doesn't get to know any details about it, but he does know it exists, right? Mm-hmm. But that edge only has 4 possible like levels to it. There's only 4 perks attached to it, and they're all singular perks. So I can't like up them or increase them or change them in any way. They do these 4 specific things, and one of them is one that, like, I don't think any player of the game will ever want on this edge, because it makes the thing, the artifact, something that all of the supernatural want, which makes you essentially hunted by the supernatural if you possess it. And unless you're using that as some kind of like, I'm going to use it to attract the supernatural so we can kill them, which just means that your party is constantly reactive rather than trying to investigate and then proactively taking down a monster. I don't think any players are really ever going to choose that option, aside from the few occasional outliers. So I'm like, this is a very weird thing, considering that like the other one that I have, I can continue to add more perks to it as I specialize in different monsters. But this one basically has an endpoint and it can't be increased in any way.
It's
so,
me,
like,
I'm
there's
the outlier.
Yeah. No, it's fine. Like, it's a fine perk. I don't think there's anything wrong with it, but for it to be like for there only to be 4 and one is one that I'm not entirely sure most people would pick seems a bit strange, because that really means that effectively there's only 3 that most people are going to go for, and they're all only one shot choice. Versus like, so like Repel the Supernatural, right? Like there's a perk called Specialization. You get extra 2 dice if you choose a specialization against a monster type. And in the World of Darkness, there's a ton, so you can take that multiple times and you can continue to increase your abilities to deal with various monsters. But unlike the shielding or the detection perk, there's nothing to add to it. You just it just does that thing and that's it. And
It just
so it
sounds like
leads
it's
to
a built-in plot hook. That's
yes,
where I look at
that's
it.
their intent.
So.
That's their intent. Yeah, it's their intent with that perk, and I totally get that. And I'm not really worried about that being there. I totally think it should be there. That's totally fine. But like, there's just some designs with like the character development where you reach a point where if you play the game like we've played for, you're playing the game for 10 sessions, you reach a point where you're like, do I have to branch into, like, in using Vampire like V5 as an example, do I have to branch into a completely different discipline now because I've reached the endpoint of my discipline, essentially?
Mm-hmm.
Right. And like, that's sort of a design flaw, because you can't continue to like increase that discipline in any way. You just have to go into something else. So like the same thing happens. So I just use Artifact because that's what I have for Arthur. But like Ordinance and some of the other ones, they reach an endpoint where you can't get any more from that, and you have to then switch to something else. So your character can't continue to develop to be more impressive at that thing that they do really well. They have to branch into something else. And that creates a slightly weird dynamic for when you're trying to build a character. But I do think that overall, like, the game system is great. And the real problem I have is the amount of pages dedicated to organizations that are essentially antagonistic and don't matter and could have been lore sheets and supplements, and not some stuff that we probably should have had that we have to wait for supplements to get. So that's kind of where I'm at. Yeah.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I don't know if the Hunter book is as bad. I will say the V5 book, the layouts. If I could change anything about any of them, layout. My God.
Yeah. No, V5's layout is terrible. That is the thing they did a lot better with H5. Is the layout is pretty well succinct, and so you're like, if you're looking for something, you know where to find it. You don't have to jump around. You're in the section of doing this one thing. You don't have to flip to a different section to find out more about it. You're just like, okay, I'm doing skills now or whatever.
As someone who's borrowing, I'm going to keep plugging my own show for the studio. As someone who's going to be running a vampire game soon, I am. Since the thing I'm running is from like V1, V2 Vampire the Masquerade, that I'm converting to 20th, and then I'm also bringing in an aspect of V5 for my Malkavian. I am digging and finding and am very, very frustrated with having to look in this V5 thing for this one thing that I'm wanting.
Yeah.
It's a nightmare.
It is. The V5 book is a nightmare, and the H5 book is much better designed, and so that's, I hope, for the werewolf book being a little bit cleaner for understanding purposes. But yeah, so mechanically, I think overall the system kind of works. There's, like I said, there's some weirdness. The fact that Arthur can like literally just reach into someone who's possessed and rip the spirit out of them is crazy, but also on point for Hunter the Reckoning. So that kind of tracks.
That sounds dope. That sounds dope. Sounds actually really metal too.
Yeah, that's dope as fuck. Hello.
Yeah, I know. So I'm like, that's actually fine. So like, it's designed pretty well, honestly.
So I'm gonna move us on, because I'm so certain that we could keep talking about this for the rest of it.
Yes,
how long do we have a show?
And unfortunately, some of us have somewhere to be after our show as well, as we can't talk about this all day, as much as I think we would all love to. It is actually time to start drinking our cups. So I have a question for both of you now. Is the marriage between Arthur and his wife still strong, or has the time apart weakened the feelings for each other?
Ooh.
Oh man, I want to play the match game now.
Ooh. Okay. Do you want to field this in the way that you understand, or do you know she? Yeah, it should.
I'm so tempted. I'm so tempted. Scott, you go first.
Okay. So here's the thing. According to the cult that Arthur was part of, the fact that he's clearly starting to feel something for Rosanna that he doesn't want to necessarily admit to, especially if Rosanna dies or he has to kill her, is technically not a problem in the cult. Technically. But he's not in the cult anymore. So that's a thing. Is it weakened the relationship? I'm sure that him not being around anymore or wanting to believe in the cult certainly has affected the relationship. But I think that that in theory, like, I don't know, I'm not sure exactly what things are happening on the back end with Katy Lynn, but it sounds like the way that BP is portrayed her so far and the way that she probably passed on to Clara is that, like, Katy Lynn hopes for his return, essentially. Because this isn't the first time that Arthur has strayed. There's a backstory to Arthur that people don't know yet. This isn't the first time that Arthur has strayed away and has come back. So
yeah, I do know that there is the I think it's listed as an edge, the like soulmate or something.
It is, and I have done nothing to get rid of it.
Yeah, so I think it's very fun. It's very interesting. The like having it. I'm sure that there is still that, like, I guess almost metaphysical connection. The Scott has done such a cool, like, good job designing like the cult, and BP has done a lot of stuff like to augment it. As to my understanding, I think that's how that worked out.
That is exactly how that worked out.
But yeah, the cult does, I guess, polyamory, or at least polygamy.
It certainly does polygamy, yes.
Yeah.
We were talking about that last episode as we were with Rosanna and Peter. We were talking about who we were wanting to ship, and we actually asked this. This was a question asked of everybody. And I said I wanted Rosanna and Arthur. I shipped Rosanna and Arthur because ultimately I am a fan of Greek tragedies. And I do think it would be a tragic relationship for the two.
It would.
And
you know, they're technically 75% married.
What?
Yeah, well, yeah, and I said it. I said it like for Arthur, I think it would still be on the cards, even if, you know, Clara and, you know, Arthur were to actually be married again. I still think it would be on the cards for all three of them to do relationship stuff.
It would.
My hope is, as a person who's literally brought into this show to torture Arthur, and by extension Scott. My hope is mostly that, like, I ship Rosanna and Arthur because I want to see how I want to see how it shakes out when that confrontation does happen with Katy Lynn. Because that, like, to my understanding, that woman does not have a mean bone in her body.
Correctamundo.
And I am excited to watch Arthur fuck that up.
Yeah.
Actually, one of the things I was also hoping for with Arthur and Peter and Rosanna is that if Rosanna and Peter did start dating and Arthur found out, I feel like Arthur, just without saying anything, would probably deck Peter and then went, "No, I'm fine."
Yeah, that sounds accurate. Actually, that sounds accurate. Worst part is that because Peter, well, maybe not supernatural, maybe, I don't know yet.
We
but
don't know
anyway,
yet.
If he's not supernatural, then it would be like probably the weakest punch ever, because when it actually comes down to it, Arthur sucks at punching. He really is bad at it. The only reason why he's any good at it is because it's a supernatural thing. That's it. Yeah, he, like, his actual, like, I roll, if it's a boxing related thing, I get to roll 4 dice. If it's not, it's 3 dice. And if BP's nice and lets me use my one die from artifact, then cool, then I get to have an extra die. But when it comes to punching, I don't know, a ghost, it's Arthur is rolling like 14 dice. So it's a completely different set of like dealing with stuff. So if he punches Peter and Peter turns out not to be supernatural, it would be like a slap and then be like, "You're fine. Get out of here, goofy kid."
Well, that's good at least.
Yeah.
Yeah. But no, but yeah, so there is the soulmate factor and the fact that actually technically Arthur has 4 or 5 wives. It's still a little unclear already. But they've all been married off to others because of the cult, right? So the cult has this sort of weird polygamy circle, like everyone's connected to each other through some means, kind of weird cult thing that I made. It would not be Katy Lynn's first time of being like, oh, Arthur is marrying someone else. But to clarify for Clara, who probably doesn't know, so in season 1, when Rosanna was possessed by a ghost, they thought that the only way to free the ghost was to complete a marriage ceremony the ghost did not get to complete. And so Arthur stood in as the husband, and Rosanna and Arthur went through an entire wedding ceremony. But right at the end, when there was the last bit of like, I now pronounce you husband and wife bit, we got attacked. And so the wedding ceremony didn't finish. But technically, Rosanna has been in a wedding dress. Arthur has been in a suit. They've stood before an altar with a priest, and they've gone through the wedding process. They just haven't completed it yet, technically.
My favorite trope.
It seems that Arthur just has this trouble with like dealing with supernatural in non-violent ways. Do you think time with gun shop might help him or make it worse?
So yes. No, yeah. Right. Arthur has absolutely no idea on how to handle supernatural without destroying them, but that's because he's driven by this need to destroy the speaker and save his wife, right?
Yeah.
Like that's his obsession, is to destroy the speaker. But he also, so he has this atonement thing because he feels bad for all of the people that he's led to the cult to put in the hands of a supernatural entity. So yeah, so his real only perspective is destroy it. The others have been pushing him to like find non-violent means. And so far, Gunshop has presented this sort of weird situation where he's been helpful. And so that leads to it being complicated because he's already confused like how to handle Rosanna, and he's certainly confused as to where he stands. And now Gunshop's like, you're Celestial Chorus. And so Arthur really doesn't know how to handle this idea that he might actually kind of be a mage in some ways. And so, yeah, it would certainly complicate things, but does that mean he wouldn't, try to choke out Gunshop if he went a little overboard? No, it wouldn't stop him from doing that at all.
Well, I think
I have a question.
Well, save it.
Spilling some tea already. All right.
We're not there yet.
I was just going to say, has Arthur considered therapy?
No, not at all. Not at all.
We've asked this question before. The answer is, we've asked.
No. Therapy, that's for people who aren't the righteous hand of God. That's for those people.
What if Katy Lynn asked? What if Katy Lynn asked?
Well, okay. All right. Well, I can't answer for Clara, but I think it would be, because if Katy Lynn were to ask, her obvious suggestion would be someone in the cult, right?
Yeah.
Yes. And obviously Arthur's response to that would be, sorry, like you're smarter than me, but this one you're wrong on. I'm sorry.
I think that was very cute. That is a very cute thing. The like, you're smarter than me. It's like clearly a way to like a thing that they have together is this little. Yeah. I'm a big sucker for that sort of thing. So Arthur being like, you're so smart. I'm like, aw, he says it all the time.
So
yeah,
are there any like future plans that Katy Lynn might have with the speaker, and like how either of you might play into it? Do you know?
I feel like I'm not allowed to tell you guys.
Yeah. So unfortunately,
so loaded.
I don't think that Claire is actually allowed to tell us what her and BP have planned for Katy Lynn and the speaker.
Katy Lynn leaves the cult and starts taking paralegal lessons, and is planning on becoming president in a few years.
Okay.
See, that would be Arthur's goal. And so that sounds great.
Yeah, but remember, I'm here to torture you, so you think that's gonna happen?
Yeah, I know that's not the plan. No, so I would say that like from what I think is that there's like Clara knows this. Clara knows that this is what Arthur thinks because she's read the journal entry. If you haven't, it's there. You can read the journal entry. So
It's been very entertaining.
Yeah, Arthur firmly believes that this is a trap. That the speaker is using Katy Lynn. Either he has a plan for Katy Lynn that doesn't involve Arthur at all, and it's something nefarious that Arthur has to stop, or it's actually a ploy to get him somewhere where the speaker can stop him from doing the things that he's doing and or stop the cult. But this recent episode exposure of the cult's connections being very deep, I'm not so sure now anymore, and I have no idea what BP's doing back there, and I'm so confused.
The speaker only has your best interests at heart, I promise.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Well, with Arthur seeing himself as like the righteous hand of God, if he were to like confront the speaker about this, would he? Do you think possibly that they would try to get Arthur to awakened or possibly get him closer to ascension? Does Arthur even know what ascension is?
So Arthur's view on what ascension means is something I played into when I wrote the cult stuff that BP modified. So originally in the session 0.5, the ascension is talked about as far as the cult's context of it. The cult has this concept of ascending that is something about your soul going to a different sort of plane, the ultimate existence in the cult. And it turns out that for whatever reason, the speakers using this ploy for whatever nefarious thing the speaker actually does with people's souls when they ascend. So it's not exactly the same as a mage ascension. It's entirely different from a mage ascension, but because BP modified it, I don't know what that actually means. But what Arthur believes and what the cult sort of teaches is that ascension is some like your soul goes up to heaven kind of situation, and then you transcend your existence and you're no longer on this realm, right? So it's a pseudo spiritual thing that you're trying to achieve by like Scientology style, removing all of your little things, I forget what they're called, but all the little hangups that keep you from being able to ascend. So when you say ascension in terms of the Church of the Rising Star, it has a completely different context. So if Gunshop were to say, "Oh, it's fine, you're going to ascend soon," he's going to go, "What the fuck did you say to me?"
I love that.
Now, Clara, is there ever a chance that we might see you on camera as Arthur's wife?
I hope so. I can give you a little bit of inside baseball on this. It's a scheduling issue is why I wasn't on camera, because I actually had to go do another show afterwards.
Oh dear.
So truly, Katy Lynn, I want her on camera as much as everyone else hopefully does. I just it has to come at a time where I'm not double dipping.
All right,
that's mean. I'm sorry.
Very fair.
No,
that is very fair.
Costumes are a bitch. Yeah, I totally get it.
Well, and that's the other thing is like I will tell you. We were talking about names off camera, off recording earlier. I don't think I look like a Katy Lynn. If that makes sense. So it is obviously. I also don't think I look like a Clara. So it's just one of those things where I'm like, I have to decide like what that would look like too. But mostly it's scheduling.
Interesting.
All right. So, and then to tie back to the episode a little bit, we've gotten confirmation that Victoria and Zephyr are dead.
Oh,
correct.
Yes.
They are flat dead.
And we're kind of, at least, we're kind of seeing how or what killed Victoria a little bit. We've got some ideas.
We have ideas, yeah.
And personally, I have ideas of how Zephyr died. And I think they are related. I'm hoping they're related. Personally. What is Arthur hoping to accomplish with Rosanna and their new friends now?
Interesting question. So as far as Arthur's concerned, Zephyr was killed by the speaker because that's what ascension looks like in the cult. Which is the secret that Arthur discovered, and that's what made him leave. So the secret that Arthur discovered is that this ascension thing is not quite so spiritually enlightening as it may seem. The bodies that get left behind after someone ascends are drained husks, and they look exactly like that's why BP mentioned that, because I'd forgotten that's what the things look like. But what it essentially boiled down to is that in the session 0.5, when we had this thing where we played out life in the cult, and BP sort of showed me all the modifications she made to the cult. She involved the other two, which were Jillian and Zephyr. And Jillian and Zephyr were well aware of what somebody looked like when they ascended. And Jillian was kind of reaching a point where she was like, this is not right and this shouldn't be happening. So when Arthur finally accidentally stumbled across what somebody looks like when they ascend, that's when he was like, there's something very, very wrong here. And so as far as he's concerned, Zephyr was killed by the speaker. And so his plan now is to, use these other friends. That's why he went to Piper and was like, hey, we're really going to need to dig into this stuff. Because he's starting to realize that the speaker has a much more nefarious sort of thing going on, and it really needs to be dealt with, especially since Katy Lynn's now in the threat zone.
How dare you?
I don't know.
Doubt the speaker.
Well, because
yeah. But I don't know if there's any relation.
Piper's the one who has all this information, about.
Yeah.
Well, she has access to a lot of information.
Correct. And so I don't know if what Vic killed Victoria is related to the speaker or not. And if it is, then BP has done something brilliant and linked in both the Linnea Society, which was Victoria's backstory, and the speaker, which was Arthur's backstory, in a way that is incredibly creative, and we'll have to play out that particular weird chain of conspiracy.
Personally, I was thinking that, my ideas are leaning towards werewolves, because I'm a werewolf guy.
I think werewolves killed Victoria too, but the speaker's death, or Zephyr's death, is very much the speaker. The speaker's hand was definitely involved in that. But does that mean that there's not some kind of cabal of evil? We know that there are vampires and mages working together. And maybe werewolves somehow too. Is there some giant cabal of supernatural entities all working together? Maybe. And that's terrifying.
Where we're having these black spiral dancers and Nafandi and Sabat just fucking shit up.
Just a big circle of let's just do some stuff and
let's ruin the world.
It's the old house adage: it's never lupus, it's never lupines.
Exactly. So that's where we're kind of going. I mean, he's obviously going to go after the speaker with his friends, but after that, he's just kind of along to then help them with whatever it is they were wanting to do.
All right. So the section we're moving on to now is our questions are more tailored to what the fuck moments of the episode. It's a bit freeform. We're talking about controversies. We're talking about rumors, love interests, as always. In this section, we invite you guys to ask each other any pressing hard questions that you might have, or to ask us questions of other people that we're going to interview.
Well, Clara.
Hold on, there's a small kitten who wants to be let in, and it will ruin the recording if I do not open my door. I will be right back.
Okay, we're going to pause, and we're going to let the thing do. My dog has also decided to join me. She's wanting attention. Luckily, she's quiet.
Sorry.
So
I am back.
good.
So, Claire,
Yeah.
what the fuck, man? Just kidding.
What am I supposed to say? Like, I told you what I'm here for.
Yeah, no. I know you came into it with the knowledge that your whole job was to rip out Arthur's heart. How, like, what? I'm curious to know what you like did to think through like how you would do that, and like, yeah, just the process that you went through to sort of come up with being in the right place to do that.
As a secret heartbeat. No, it's a couple things. One, I don't get to play nice characters a lot, so it's always very fun to do so, especially like very like soft people. So I was just there was a lot of just pent up, like unused sweet girl energy. The truth is I fully just I fully came in. I was like, I'm just gonna treat Arthur the way I treat my partner, but on nice days. So the joke of like I tell my friends this too. This is just a common phrase we all have, which is like, be nice to my friend. The like, be nice to my husband is you, is like the thing that I often say, like my friends or like my partner, of like, be nice to my boyfriend. Like he's cool. Because I don't know, it's cute. I love when couples have little things like that. So BP hadn't written anything in, and I kind of wanted to have that little bit in there. I don't know. It, like I said, I love like I love the tragedy of just a oppressively nice person just getting fucked over by a person who kind of sucks. So I just was enjoying channeling that. Sorry.
No, it's good.
Yeah. But yeah, it's something I don't get to do very often. So what you got was what Katy Lynn got for characterization was a lot of the stuff that I instinctively want to do to be nice to people and just don't get.
Who do you guys ship for like Arthur's relationships?
Loaded question.
Well, go ahead.
For scheduling reasons, Rosanna. For personal reasons, Katy Lynn. I think what I want to see is Arthur deal with his feelings in an adult manner, and whether that ends in a like polyamory situation, yeah, polyamory or monogamy, I care a little less about, but I do care. I'm just like, I just want Arthur to be happy. Is that weird to say?
No, not at all. I mean, so as far as the others are concerned, I don't think he has a chance with the other two. So just throwing that out there. But also, when Piper just completely shut him down, like there's no avenue there whatsoever. So it would be Rosanna, but I'm playing with this complex idea that Arthur has. Does he have feelings for Rosanna? I'll just throw it out there. Yes, he does. And he's sort of kind of expressed it a little bit in his journals, where he's coming to understand that he actually cares about her a little bit more than, just this person that he works with. But that, again, like I said, is so, even if it would realistically end in polyamory if he had a choice. But it really depends on how Rosanna feels. And so, because for him, having another wife is not that strange. But at the same time, the usual process is that Katy Lynn would be aware of it before it happened. And that's not happening.
That's just healthy non-monogamy, my guy.
Yeah. So yeah, that's what I mean. So it's really complicated for him, because even if he does get to the point where he's like, yeah, we have to pursue this, he has in his steps of how that works, he's not fulfilling one. So it's really complicated for him. Yeah.
Yeah. Until that happens, I ship Arthur in his hand.
Yeah.
The righteous hand of God.
Oh no.
Oh, that's hey, listen, that's after dark here, okay?
Okay. Uh,
Oh no.
That's oh gosh, yeah.
that's gonna be clipped. Gonna remember to do that. What? Okay, so I mean, what's gonna happen if their marriage isn't nullified? What happens if the speaker just does that?
Oh shit, I didn't even think of that.
Oh yeah.
Oh
That
man, I
was
kind
that
of
was
hope it
that was
does.
an idea I floated last week as well. I was like, what if it just gets nullified? What if it just if they go like, nah?
Ooh, that's something I hadn't considered at all.
I
Oh
super
yeah.
didn't either, and man, that's rough.
Oh yeah, that changes some things. I mean, it would make it quote unquote easier for Arthur to like, just act on some of the things he's feeling about Rosanna, but at the same time, I think it would just make him really pissed off at the speaker because he honestly does care about Katy Lynn. Like
I
he
like that we
honestly
were.
does love her.
I like that we were both prepped for Katy Lynn to fully die, but neither of us were like, "What if she just gets a new husband?"
Yeah, that would really fuck him up.
And just
Yeah,
have
he would be.
Arthur fully excommunicated.
Yeah, that would really mess with Arthur. But I don't know because that was sort of thing is like the sort of part of the story with Katy Lynn before was that like she's kind of being when Arthur left, she kind of got I suddenly can't think of the word, but she was kind of pushed aside by everybody. She was kind of
She was shunned, I
ostracized.
think. Yeah.
Yeah. She was pushed away because of her connection to him. And then, that's why this new development with like, oh no, now it's not, it's the opposite. Like the speakers all like bringing me in and it's like, what the fuck is happening? Because he would expect that to be the case. Like when people get excommunicated from cults and stuff, their family members are usually often ostracized. And so that would be the expectation. But for like it to go the other way where she's fully embraced and he just remarries her to somebody, I'm not sure he could handle that. And I don't really know. And Clara can, I guess, speak more to Katy Lynn. I don't know how Katy Lynn would handle that.
Oh man, I truly hadn't prepped for like. I was like, that's fine. You can be like disappointed or sad or like lost. Like missing one's husband, easy to do. Man, I was not. I truly that had not occurred to me. I'm like, oh no, what
Yeah.
if it happens though? I mean, again, as a person who kind of loves the drama for it, I mean, it could happen. That's a very real possibility.
It is, and that's what's interesting is that is a fully real possibility.
Mm-hmm.
I will say, and like, even though, even if it's like ethical non-monogamy, that sort of thing, it's not freedom from like feelings, right? Like, just because you're not
Correct.
jealous of something, just because like it part of your relationship is about being about non-monogamy doesn't mean that like it doesn't hurt when someone finds a new partner or like etc betrays
Yeah.
your trust. So like
Yeah.
regardless of the situation with Rosanna or any of the other characters, there is this level of like, hey, you lied and left, and that's gonna hurt a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
Like there's a limit to a woman's patience.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm very excited for that.
So fortunately, Arthur didn't actually lie to Katy Lynn.
That's true.
Yeah. So fortunately, like of any person, he would not lie to Katy Lynn. But he's not fully telling her what's going on with the speaker just to keep her safe. And he's explained that to her the first time they spoke.
True.
So he's hiding things? Yes. Is he lying? No. Is he hiding things to be malicious? Absolutely not. He's actually hiding things to protect her.
Oh, for sure. Again, it's it is one of those things I am thinking about or had to think about was the like, Arthur left in pretty decent, okay circumstances with Katy, with Katy Lynn. So now it's just to like, I think bringing in that drama, especially if something like their marriage gets annulled, and it's like, well, I've got like she's got to go be a good wife to somebody else. Like, how does that?
Mhm. Yeah, that's
make
where
you
it would be
feel? Like,
complicated. Yeah.
ah.
But fortunately, the answer to your question is, if that were to happen, I don't know if BP would necessarily erase this soulmate advantage that Arthur has that I've rarely used, but just keep playing. So I have all these like advantages and flaws that I don't like. I actually play on for role playing, but I don't actually use any of the mechanical things that go along with it. Which is why in the last episode when she was like, "Isn't there a role associated with that?" I was like, no. And so then I messaged her. I was like, I think maybe there is supposed to be. I just keep playing with Arthur's PTSD. I just roll with it as a thing that he has.
Like,
I'm sure he's supposed to be making rolls somewhere. Yeah, yeah. I'm like, I don't even fight it. No. He just goes into catatonia. I don't go like, oh yeah, I think I'm supposed to make like a willpower roll or that. No, I'm just like, no. He just goes catatonic because things be triggering.
Yeah.
So speaking of triggering things, what's going to happen? I'm even going to involve Katy Lynn on this. Say that Arthur tells her that Piper is a mage. How are you guys going to react? What's going to happen?
So if Piper
ends up being a mage, what's Arthur going to do? And if he tells Katy Lynn, what's going to happen there?
Well, so I can answer right now that Arthur won't tell Katy Lynn.
Oh. Okay.
So Rosanna, are we talking about Piper or Rosanna here?
We're talking about possible mage.
Yeah, well, I mean, Rosanna's something for sure. I think she's potentially Fae.
Yeah, we're going along the lines of Fae with her.
But Piper, if Piper goes, I think so. Here's what I do know. I don't know. We had this discussion actually, sort of off the clock kind of deal. Termite was not expecting for Piper to be semi-mage, and so if that's the avenue that things go down, I think even Piper would be confused by it, and so I don't think anyone in the cell would know how to handle it. Because even the player was like, "What? This is a thing that could happen." So I think that we'd all be confused. And the fact is that Katy Lynn, so the reason why Arthur doesn't share information with Katy Lynn is to keep her safe. And so he probably wouldn't say, I'm hanging out with a Fae and a mage, like until after everything was safe, right? When Katy Lynn is safely away from the clutches of the speaker, then maybe he'll offload all of the information to her. Well, he would at that point because she was safe. Then he doesn't need to protect her from the information that she might have. But telling her while she's still in the presence of the speaker, not going to happen. Not at all.
I think there's a world where I go off-roading and Katy Lynn, after the speaker stuff might be dealt with, becomes a hunter and does like kind of reconciles that.
Yeah.
But that would be some wild off-roading on my part.
That would be some post-seasonal like fan fiction-y type off-roading thing. Yeah.
That would be some real spin-off material.
Is there a possibility that like, I mean, not that anyone would know what a sorcerer is, because they're very similar to mages, but distinctly not. Mm-hmm. At least in World of Darkness. Like, do we think that Piper is a lot closer to just being a sorcerer?
So I don't know. So back to what we were saying. So there's actually a thing about Piper that did get expressed by Gunshop in the show, and that Piper is this null zone for magic, actually. And whether that means it's because Piper is a mage or Piper is strictly anti-mage, that's what we're unclear about because we're not sure where BP's going with that. But I'm not, so I don't know what exactly Piper is because, and this is a big shout out to BP, because BP is a very good storyteller and likes to go like, so this is the parameters of something, and I'm going to totally take that in a direction that no one is expecting, but still within the parameters of the game rules. And so like some of the advantages and flaws that we have actually come from like older editions of World of Darkness stuff that she liked and pulled in, and because they technically still match with the rules, then we can still play with them within the parameters of the rules, but in a context that they're not necessarily supposed to be applied to. So no clue what Piper is, and it could be a sorcerer, but likely like some kind of other type of mage, non-magey type thing. I mean, that leads to a very weird thing. Are we all something semi-supernatural, right? And if so, what does that mean for our hunter self? Good question. If it were to turn out that if Piper is a sorcerer, then it gets back to the thing that was what changed Arthur in season 1, which was the concept that people are like monsters are what people or what we do, not what we are, right? Mm-hmm. And so if Piper turns out to be a sorcerer, it depends on how Piper handles those abilities and that knowledge, and whether or not Arthur has to kill Piper, which is why he hasn't tried to kill Gunshot quite yet. So there's that.
Unfortunately, go ahead.
Would he tell? Back to the question about would he tell Katy Lynn? There's a whole lot that he probably won't explain to her, because not just to protect her from the speaker, but also because even when you explain something to someone and they don't really understand what you're talking about, it's effectively the same as lying to them, because they're not going to understand it. So I don't know that he would necessarily explain everything, unless Katy Lynn went down the path of becoming a hunter. Then he's like, all right, well, let's sit down and let me explain to you all this occult stuff that I've gathered over the last couple of months.
Again, a crazy swing if that happened. I will say there's got to be a confrontation a little bit of the like, hey, bud, you fully left and we have to have this, like, are you planning on doing that again? What's going on? Like, there is a little bit of, like, I'm sure this happens. I'm sure this happens with, like, people who work in, like, high classified, like, government jobs or whatever. It's like,
yep,
I have to go for a while. I will come back. I cannot tell you what's going on. You know, that sort of thing.
Or I'm going to go for a little while. I may not come back because I might just die.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that sucks. And so there is a little, that is a strain. And that is a thing that, like, I feel like you should negotiate with a partner at some point.
Mm-hmm.
So I think there will be something.
For sure. As far as Katy Lynn is concerned right now, Arthur's off trying to figure himself out.
He's on walkabout.
Yeah.
That's what he's up to.
That's what he's up to, because he's also, like, when he talks to her, he's like asking questions about what's going on in the cult, but not in a way where he's like disappointed. Like when Claire, when you were like, oh, the speaker's taking me in, like I was like, shit, like Arthur's like son of a bitch, but he didn't say that. He was like, oh, that's interesting, like, you know, that kind of thing.
Yeah. Oh, it's again very fun for me to just be like, hey, here's a red flag for you. Enjoy that.
Yeah.
I'll just keep throwing these at you. No problem.
And on that bombshell, thank you for listening. These episodes are dropped Thursdays at noon for $5 and up, $5 tier and up on Patreon. They're released to the public 1 month later. Think about subscribing so you can be up to date with your talk news for Hallowed Haven Studios. Goodbye.
Bye.
Bye.